Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September edition of the Staff Wellness and Health Booster Sessions. We are excited to present today's session, Cognitive Behavior Therapy with Mindfulness, or CBTM. My name is Chad Saxon, Communications Specialist with Shared Health, and I will be the moderator for today's session. CBTM is an evidence-based program that supports better mental health for healthcare staff through increased access to cognitive behavior therapy. CBTM can teach you some CBT skills that may help you cope with stress and manage work and life better. In today's session, we will learn what CBTM is about, and Cheryl will also, our host today, or presenter today, Cheryl Maxim, will also go through an exercise if there is enough time. So again, as I mentioned, our presenter today is Cheryl Maxim. Cheryl has over 20 years of experience providing therapy to individuals, couples, and groups with a specialization in traumatic stress. She is a clinical specialist with CBTM and Shared Health, as well as a lecturer in the Ratty Faculty of Medicine at the University of Manitoba. She has been a CBTM trainer and facilitator since 2015 and has trained facilitators across Canada. As well, Cheryl has an extensive training in several evidence-based treatments for PTSD, depression, and anxiety. Before we get to the presentation, I just want to note that we'll have a few minutes for questions once Cheryl's finished. So if any questions come to mind during her presentation, please enter them into the question section, which is located in the GoToWebinar control panel. Also, today's session is being recorded and will be made available as a streaming video on demand on Shared Health's mental health resources page, which is located on the health providers section. With that, I'll turn things over to Cheryl.
Great, thank you so much, Chad. Thanks everybody for making the time to learn a little bit about the Cognitive Behavior Therapy with Mindfulness program and some of the skills that we have to manage some stress. I have about 25 minutes to present, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the program, and I'm going to give you a small taste of a couple of skills that are taught in CBTM, and I'm also going to give you some information on how to sign up for the program at the end of the workshop, and then again we'll have some time for questions. But before I get started, I want to share the Shared Health land acknowledgement. Health services across Manitoba are provided in facilities located on the original lands of First Nations, Inuit, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. Manitoba's health authorities respect that First Nations treaties were made on these territories, acknowledge harms and mistakes, and we dedicate ourselves to collaborating in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and the Métis people in the spirit of reconciliation. We acknowledge discrimination and racism still exist and caused harm across Manitoba's healthcare system today, affecting Indigenous, Black, and racialized individuals and communities. And we resolve to take real and impactful steps to disrupt and dismantle racism and discrimination in all forms across Manitoba's health system. So as Chad mentioned in the intro, CBTM is an evidence-based, class-based program that uses key skills of a particular kind of therapy called cognitive behavior therapy. And so we also use some of the skills of mindfulness, and it gives you an opportunity to assess your stress and then maybe try some of the CBT skills that could improve your well-being. And cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT, was chosen for these classes because CBT works. CBT is just one kind of therapy amongst many. And there's a lot of research and scientific evidence that CBT helps individuals that are struggling with anxiety and depression. But cognitive behavior therapy also has some really good mental wellness skills that can be used to manage stress on a regular basis. And as we all know, healthcare staff can really benefit from some additional stress skills, and just reminders of how to flourish, because healthcare can be a high stress environment. And under high stress, you know, depression and anxiety, two mental health diagnoses that can flourish in burnout and high pressure and stressful environments. So this can be a useful set of skills. So as an introductory set of skills, these classes offer different things to different people. And so for some people, it's all they want or need to change thinking and behavior patterns. And for others, the classes might give a sense of whether CBT would be helpful to explore further, and might be a starting point for maybe thinking about one-on-one therapy or maybe some group work. And for folks who maybe have done some work on their mental health, it might be a reminder of some skills and good habits that can help keep you on track and to help you to continue making some progress. CBTM for healthcare is a really flexible program that's been adapted for healthcare providers using material and specific examples that talk about the experience of working in the healthcare field. But CBTM for healthcare is really meant for anyone who works or volunteers or studies in this environment. So whether you're in nursing or you're a physician, or you work in security, you're a student or a volunteer, maybe you're a healthcare aide, or you work in administration or tech or system services. These classes are really for everyone if you play a role in the healthcare system. And class participants learn a few different things in classes. So you learn the principles of CBT for depression and anxiety, the structure and process of CBT, some basic mindfulness skills, some good quality self-help CBT and mindfulness resources in topics that can improve coping and your ability to thrive. Because as we all know, often the internet is the first resource folks turn to when they're looking for information about their health. So we wanted to really provide them and you with some good quality resources that you can turn to. And along with the topics on the slide that are mentioned, CBTM classes also cover off shift work. If shift work is a part of your job, we talk a little bit about burnout and anger management and self-compassion and other skills that you can try. So classes are typically 90 minutes and they're once a week for about 5 weeks. So as a class participant, you can bring along support, so a family member or somebody else that you're close to. And the classes are kind of a unique program because sometimes if you're aware that you're struggling, maybe you're not eating well or sleeping well, and you might be looking for kind of a quick entry point to try some different things and just maybe a new approach to a situation that you might be stuck in. And so a unique feature of the CBTM program is that the class format is fewer sessions than a standard therapy program, which might be, maybe 6 to 8 sessions or maybe longer. And CBTM is really focused on kind of engaging with you and sort of helping you to try some skills. So it's less intensive than therapy. And if you're not sure that therapy is right for you, or if you're on a wait list somewhere for therapy, then CBTM is a really great place to start. So I wonder if we could maybe start with a little bit of engagement with all of you that are on the booster session today. So I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about one of the skills that we teach in CBTM. So I wondered if you might be able to take an educated guess at how many thoughts, sort of in an average day, does the average human being have in a day? Does anybody know or want to take a guess at that? And
We've had a couple comments in the section here. One said thousands, a million. I'm sure it's probably up there.
yeah, good guesses. It's and don't anybody, don't ask me on how anybody found this out, because I don't know the answer to this, but it's 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day.
We had one person who's very close to that in their answer. Yeah.
Great. So the interesting thing about having that many thoughts in a day is that not all of those thoughts are true. Not all of those thoughts are realistic or balanced. And so this is a picture that is kind of a metaphor for how CBT works. So if you've seen this picture before and you know how it works, if you could kind of hold off on answering. And for the folks who have never seen it before, I'd really love it if you could maybe, type something into the chat and take a guess at what you see in this picture. So there's no wrong answer here. Whatever you think is in the picture is totally fine. So what do you see?
We've had a couple of responses. A woman's back, a pretty young woman. At first the young lady, then the old. Young girl facing away from the camera photo. A few other answers kind of in that same vein.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks everybody for joining in the discussion. Again, no wrong answer here, but the reason that we use this picture is that it's a great way to point out that in some types of therapy, the therapist mainly helps the person to see kind of just the helpful stuff. Maybe the more positive things in the situation, and that's not the way that CBT likes to work. So CBT says, let's take a step back from the situation and let's see it from different angles. And so just like this picture where we see a few different things, again, no wrong answer here, but typically there's a couple of things that people see. A younger woman looking into the back left corner, kind of on a diagonal. And then there's an older woman that you see in profile looking directly left. And if you can't see both of those, that's okay. Often if you kind of just keep looking at it, and you kind of put a soft focus on your gaze, it'll kind of come to you eventually. But the purpose here again is CBT says, try to take a step back from the situation and ask yourself, in the same situation, is there more than one side to this? Is there another way to look at it? And that's because when folks are feeling stressed or worried, people tend to have inflexible and difficult thinking patterns. So if you think about yourself wearing sunglasses inside, you're not able to see everything. You're not able to see all the colors, or maybe some of the room is kind of obscured, or you can't see it all because of the darkness of the glasses. And so that's kind of what happens when we get this narrowed and inflexible thinking when we're stressed. And these unhelpful thinking patterns are automatic. So they're very human, and they automatically happen, but they're more frequent and intense when we're feeling stressed or worried. So again, CBT doesn't involve just using helpful thinking, but instead the focus is on accurate and balanced and realistic thinking. So let's break down cognitive behavior therapy, the model, into two parts. So we've got the C in CBT, and that's the part that's focused on cognitions or thinking patterns. And then there's the B part, so the behaviors or the actions. And I want to take a little bit of a look at those cognitions. So one of the core ideas in CBT is testing one's beliefs and assumptions. So again, when we have difficult feelings, we also tend to have difficult, unhelpful, and inflexible thinking. So in CBT, again, you learn to step back and think about the situation more broadly. And CBT isn't just about thinking positively, it's about teaching you that more accurate and balanced thinking. Learning to see situations in a balanced and realistic way is important because when we're feeling stressed and worried, again, we have this automatic response to narrow our thinking. And that is not helpful to kind of, sometimes that can get us stuck. And remember that this model applies to everybody. Everybody has this kind of thinking. And so it's not just for folks that are dealing with stress or dealing with maybe anxiety or depression. It really is very human. Oh, Chad, you might have your mute off. I just hear some computer sounds. So this is a list of common thinking traps or cognitive distortions, as they're called in CBT. And it really gives you an idea of the difficult ways of thinking that we can all get caught in. So again, we all have thinking traps. Those folks with anxiety or depression tend to have them more frequently, which can then trigger and maintain anxiety and depression. So there's a number of them here. And actually, Chad, I should ask if people are able to unmute themselves. Does this platform allow for folks to talk?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, no problem. So this is a list of all the thinking traps and an example. And I know that this list might be awfully small, the printing, so I've got it just a little bit bigger. So generally when we're in class, what's a really powerful thing is that we offer that class participants, if they choose, if they feel comfortable, can read each one of these out, and we all take turns. Right now, I'm just going to read them out. But as I go through this list, what I'd like you to do is just kind of reflect and think if any of these sound familiar to you. Remembering that these are human, we all have them. So overgeneralizing is thinking that a negative situation is part of a constant cycle of bad things that happen. People who overgeneralize often use words like always or never. For example, I wanted to go for a walk at lunch, but now it's raining. This always happens to me. I never get to do fun things. All or nothing thinking is also called black and white thinking. So seeing things only as right or wrong, good or bad, perfect or terrible. People who think in black and white terms see a small mistake as a total failure. For example, I wanted to eat healthier, but I just had a piece of cake. This plan is a total failure. I might as well eat the whole cake. What's wrong with eating a whole cake, I tell you? The next one is fortune telling. So predicting that something bad will happen without any evidence. For example, I've been studying hard, but I know that I'm going to fail my test tomorrow. Emotional reasoning is believing that bad feelings or emotions reflect the truth of a situation. For example, I feel anxious when I fly, so airplanes must not be safe. Labeling is saying only negative things about yourself or others. For example, I made a mistake at work, I'm stupid. My boss told me I made a mistake, my boss is the total jerk. Should statements telling yourself how you should or must act? Should statements about ourselves lead to guilt? Should statements about others lead to anger and resentment? For example, I should be able to handle this without getting upset and crying. Should statements are also connected to perfectionism too, by the way. And just a few left. So mind reading is jumping to conclusions about what others are thinking without any evidence. For example, my coworker didn't stop to say hello. She must not like me very much. Mental filter is focusing only on the negative parts of a situation and ignoring anything good or positive. So for example, I met a lot of great people at the party, but one guy didn't talk to me. There must be something wrong with me. And these are the last two. So catastrophic thinking is exaggerating the importance of negative things, believing the worst case scenario, or thinking something is unbearable or impossible when it isn't that bad. For example, I stumbled over my words during the presentation at work, so I'll probably lose my job. And the last one is personalization. So you see yourself as the cause of some negative external event for which in fact you're not primarily responsible. So for example, my partner looks irritable today. I must have done something to upset them. So again, this slide is kind of like the bingo card of thinking traps, as I like to call it. And it's a reminder that we all have thinking traps. And again, as you went through them, having a chance to kind of reflect on which ones are most common for you. And honestly, maybe all of them, right? Lots of folks just kind of use different thinking traps for different situations. So that's just one of the things that's kind of a key skill in CBTM. All right, so I want to move on to talk about another skill that's a part of the CBTM classes, and this is from the 4th class. So self-compassion is a topic that's really well suited to discuss alongside the topic of anger, which is also in class 4. And compassion for self and others can really support assertive communication and reduce unhelpful anger and anxiety and depression cycles. And we've got 3 main components of self-compassion. The first one is self-kindness, which is about how you relate to yourself with warmth and understanding, rather than ignoring or criticizing or judging yourself. And you build this by recognizing the painful experience and being gentle with the experience that you're going through. You do this by treating yourself kindly when you're experiencing a bad day, and at times when your instinct is to be self-critical. So instead of ignoring the difficult experience you've been through and telling yourself to get through it and move on, you comfort and you care for yourself the way that you would a friend. And judging and criticizing have actually the opposite effect we hope it will have. It's a myth that we need to be self-critical in order to motivate ourselves. The second point is the point about common humanity. And we can really experience a lot of frustration when things don't go as planned. And this can be accompanied by a sense of isolation, as if we believe we're the only person who makes mistakes or suffers. But suffering is part of our shared human experience. It's something that we all go through. And recognizing this common aspect of humanity can really go a long way to reducing that sense of isolation. And the final component of self-compassion is using mindfulness skills to avoid the tendency to what we call over-identify with the experience of suffering. So Dr. Kristen Neff, who's a psychologist specializing in self-compassion, says that we sometimes don't recognize that we're suffering. We can sometimes over-identify with our self-criticism, our perfectionism, and our judgment when things don't go as planned or we fail to meet the expectations we set for ourselves. And practicing some mindfulness helps us to observe our thoughts and our emotions as they are without suppressing or exaggerating them. And you do this by cultivating a non-judgmental and receptive state of mind through mindfulness to observe what is without being carried away by those experiences. And like I mentioned earlier, healthcare is a field with high standards, and it's an environment where, we can experience stress. But research really shows that self-compassion is very strongly related to good mental wellness less anxiety, less perfectionism, less stress. And it's equally strongly related to positive components like strong life satisfaction, greater motivation, healthier coping choices and lifestyle choices, and better interpersonal relationships. So the more compassion we have for ourselves, the more energy and compassion we have available for others, which really just helps you to continue to do what you're good at. And the links on the slide are for a video describing some ways to practice more self-compassion and for a website devoted to the topic. And there are multiple tools within CBT, and mindfulness is one of the ones that we practice in the CBTM classes. Mindfulness is helpful in taking a pause in your day, a brief break, just to kind of give yourself a little bit of a rest. Mindfulness is a type of meditation practice that focuses on being in the present moment, noticing your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judging them. And there's a couple of apps that are mentioned on this slide. Mindshift is one that I really like to use because it's Canadian and it's free. It's something that you can download to your mobile device or you can download to your desktop machine. And the nice thing about using an app is that it's pretty anonymous. You can put in some earbuds or some headphones and you can kind of practice mindfulness anywhere. But you don't just have to use mindfulness with an app. It can be used just by practicing everyday things. You can walk mindfully or do the dishes mindfully. You can eat mindfully or mindfully fold towels, just to give you a few examples. And to do any of those kind of everyday activities mindfully, you're really just trying to pay attention to the present moment. You walk mindfully by noticing maybe the sound your shoes make as you walk on different surfaces, the air temperature or the sun on your face, the rustling of leaves or the sound of voices. And you mindfully sip a cup of coffee or tea by perhaps placing your hands on the cup and noticing the texture and the temperature of the mug. Notice what you smell and you taste, as well as the warmth as you sip the liquid. So this is something that if you haven't tried before, or maybe even if you're a little bit skeptical about meditation or mindfulness, I suggest you give it a try. Do a little bit of an experiment. It's 5 minutes usually, and it's just something that you can give a try to and practice and see if it works. There's so much good things that come out of mindfulness. Like I mentioned on the previous slide, that there's no really downside to trying it. Okay, so I've given you sort of a snapshot of some of the skills that you can learn in CBTM classes. And now I want to talk about some of the options for you in terms of how you can take the set of classes and maybe get a little bit more involved. So remember that this is a set of classes, and we encourage you to ask questions and perhaps get involved in some of the discussion, kind of like I've done a little bit here. And that's so, as healthcare workers, we want to kind of share a little bit about what you can learn from each other and some of the skills that have been helpful. And so it's not a place to kind of get into some personal details about maybe trauma or some suicidal thoughts. And if those are things that you're dealing with, then I encourage you to get in touch with, crisis services or your primary care provider and to do that. But we've got a couple of different ways to kind of tackle the classes. And here's kind of the dates and kind of the specifics of class. So there's live facilitator classes by Zoom on Mondays. with check-in at 5:30, and then class begins around 6 and goes to about 7:30. And if Mondays don't work for you, you're more than welcome to join the general population adult classes, which are on Wednesdays beginning October 11th. And in November, the general population classes will switch to Tuesdays beginning November 14th. And then there's the web course, and that's a narrated course that you can do on your own time and your own schedule. There's no set day of the week or time of the day to complete it, but it does take a little bit of self-motivation to kind of stick with it, so that might be something to consider. So those are some options. And this is the way that you sign up and you register. So if you're curious about the program, the QR code will take you to the website, to the healthcare section where you can navigate to sign up for the classes. And then again, we've also put the email address and the website, so you're welcome to do that as well. And so at this point, maybe I'll just leave this up for a moment, so just in case you want to scan the code. But I'm happy to take any questions for a few minutes if anybody has any.
Okay, if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. We did ask somebody if there's a copy of the PowerPoint slides. That's something that maybe if Cheryl, if you're okay with it, we could include on the health providers page, along with the when the link to the video is posted. So we can, yeah, we'll get that up there.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Please just enter them into the question section, and we'll pass them on. Okay, so we do have one. When you try having an alternative thought to an unhelpful thought, what do you do to not have it feel like a lie?
Oh, that's a very good question. So sometimes we can be really, you know, our brain sometimes really gets really focused on a particular thought and can really dig in, right? Can kind of really feel like it doesn't want to kind of move to something else. And one of the really tried and true skills that can really help with that, it just takes some work, but we have an exercise called testing your thoughts. And that's one of the gold standard exercises in cognitive behavior therapy. And we teach you how to use it. And it is one of the ways that you can work on that. Yeah, your brain doesn't always want to make change, right? And that's very, very common. Know that that's common, and it just takes some practice. But great question.
We had another question just asking what is the health providers page and where will the slides and video be? I'll put a put that link out to everybody so you can have it, and so I just and I'll just send. I just click send to all as far as the answer there. So if you look in the question section, it should be in there. So so yeah, if you want to just take a look, that's where you would find that. But it is in just for those who maybe aren't familiar with it, we do have on the as part of the Shared Health website group, we have one called Health Providers, and so if you it can be there is access to that off the main Shared Health page. You'll see on the top bar a spot where it says Health Providers, and that's information that's directed primarily at staff, obviously, as the name indicates. So when you go into that page, if you look in the directory, you'll see where it says mental health and addictions, and that's where the booster series page is located at. And so we have all the past videos on there, a link at least I think to the past videos, and then a few of the newer ones, so you can find it there. But I did provide that link in the question section, so hopefully that worked for everybody.
And this is my contact information. You're more than welcome to contact me if you have any questions and you don't want to ask in the middle of the session. Feel free to contact me directly. I'm always happy to answer questions or chat.
Great.
And that's all I have, unless there's any other questions that folks have.
Not seeing any additional ones at the moment, but if anyone does want to get one last one in here, please do. And but if not, they're wondering if they could do an exercise together. I think, unfortunately, I think we just kind of run out of time for today. But I think there's some, as Cheryl mentioned, there are some different options online that could possibly be looked at. So.
Yeah, I would have loved to, but I'm condensing 7.5 hours of class material into like 20 minutes, so I had to leave some stuff out.
Never an easy task. We just had another question about the website. I put that into the chat as well, so if you were to look in the chat, it should come up there. I sent it to the entire audience. We had a question, just a person asking, is this a good course for someone who's already done CBT but needs to be refreshed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
It is great for that. I've had lots of folks go through the classes, actually more than once, because they wanted to kind of refresh. So yeah.
Great. We had another wondering, would this be helpful for social anxiety?
Yes, we don't address social anxiety directly, but we certainly talk about anxiety in general. And there's lots of skills for folks with anxiety, and we talk about some of the skills that are useful, for sure.
Great. Okay, and then another last question we have here is, when does the web course start?
The web course can be accessed really anytime. There really is no set day to start it. I'll go back to the slide. You really can kind of start anytime, and so if you want to email the team, you can kind of start whenever. It's great for folks that are doing shift work or don't find that the two classes that I mentioned, the Wednesdays or the Mondays, just don't work for you. The web course is a great option for that.
Great. And someone had asked if they can sign up for both courses.
So both the web course and the Zoom class, it's not recommended that you kind of choose, you kind of go back and forth. That's it's a tough thing to do. We find that you have better engagement and you kind of stick with it a little bit more if you kind of choose one. And then if you decide to choose you want to go through the classes again and you want to choose the other mode, then you're welcome to do that.
Yeah, looks like they just had added here, not in conjunction, but one after the other.
That's, oh yeah.
Yeah,
no,
that's more. Yeah.
You can. Sure.
Perfect. Okay, great. And can we refer a patient that may benefit from CBTM? That was another question that came up.
You sure can. We have a referral form, and it is, if you're a facilitator, so you've taken the facilitator training to deliver the classes, then you have access to the facilitator tab, and that's where the form is. But actually, if you email the team, we can get one for you.
Okay, great. Perfect. Well, I think I don't see any other questions there. So we're 10 minutes past our allotted time, but lots of good information to share. So never a bad thing to go over when that's the case. So I'm just going to touch base on our next session coming up. And of course, thank you to Cheryl and everybody for being here today. Our next edition of the Booster Series is on October 18th, when the topic is loneliness. Our presenter for that session is Tara Broso Snyder. She's the CEO of Sarah Riel Mental Health and Addictions. We'll share more information how to register for that session through our usual channels and also on the health providers website that I posted the link to in the chat section. So again, yeah, you can find that information there. And I did actually put the poster for the next session in the handouts area. So if you're able to find that, you can access that poster as well. So I think that's about everything. So again, I just want to say, Cheryl, thank you very much for today's presentation. Thank you to everybody who joined us, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. Bye.
Great.